let's just jump right in. Have you ever heard this 16th century legend of the Golem of Prague? It sounds like pure myth, right? Just a classic fairy tale. But in this explainer, we're going to completely reframe that story. We're going to look at how this ancient legend is actually a brilliantly encoded blueprint of our own biology, the geology of the Earth, and literally our deepest spiritual reality. To really get this, we need to dive into Jewish mysticism, or Kabbalah, which points to this incredibly profound relationship between our physical vessel, our bodies, and the divine spark that actually animates it. The whole idea here is that the soul's architecture is the blueprint for the body. Spiritual design comes first, and physical form follows. That concept completely sets the stage for how we understand human consciousness. So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the myth of the golem itself, then explore how we're formed from miry clay, look into the universal atom blood, map out the architecture of the soul, decode the linguistic code of life, and finally end by searching for the name. It's a fascinating journey connecting medieval folklore to modern science. All right, starting off with the myth of the golem. And I want to emphasize right up front, we're looking at this as encoded memory, not just mythology. The classic legend centers on an automaton, a figure formed entirely from river clay by Rabbi Judah Loew to protect his community in Prague. But let's look at the actual word golem. Its root comes straight from Psalm 139, meaning an unformed substance or a shapeless body, basically raw material just waiting for a soul. During the Middle Ages, mystics studied ancient texts like the Sefer Yetzirah, and they believed they could mimic God's own act of creation by using the permutations of the Hebrew alphabet to literally animate this raw clay. Which brings us to the clay itself. We are formed from miry clay, and this introduces what we can call the geochemical friction of free will. Let's pivot to geology for a second. It's wild, but the first human, Adam, actually gets his name directly from Adama, the iron-rich red clay of the earth. We are literally made of the exact same elements. There is this diaspora of souls embedded in matter, spiritual essences trapped in stone, fossil, amber, and earth. And the geology perfectly mirrors human nature. Think about it. In geology, you have rigid quartz on one side and reactive sliding feldspar on the other. When they grind together under dry conditions, tectonic stress just builds up until the rock ruptures. This is such a brilliant metaphor for human free will. Free will gives us individual choice, sure, but it also creates intense friction and stress in our minds. So the big question is, how do we survive that friction without breaking? Well, in geology, when highly pressurized hydrothermal living water is introduced, it acts like a lubricant. It suppresses the friction and stops those physical fault lines from rupturing. For us humans, the fluid of spiritual grace cools the friction of our own ego. It acts as that living water, allowing for a smooth, adaptive slide instead of self-destruction. Moving on to the universal atom blood, the lineage of our origin. We move from the earthy clay vessel to the vital fluid actually pumping through it. Remember, you are what you eat, and in Kabbalah, blood is deeply tied to our foundational physical life force. When we look at modern science, Carl Landsteiner discovered the ABO blood group back in 1900. And here's a cool fact. He originally called type O, Ona, which is German for without, because it's genetically without surface antigens. It's this profound, completely uncolonizable baseline. And this builds such an incredible human story. Think of blood type O as our ancestral atom blood. It's the absolute oldest lineage linked to ancient hunter-gatherers. And as a universal donor, it's a sovereign baseline present everywhere, belonging to everyone. Then you have type A, which emerged with agrarian societies, much more community-oriented. Type B developed along high-altitude migrations, showing immense resilience and adaptability. And type AB, the youngest, is this complex synthesis born along global trade routes. But type O? That remains the original, shared memory of our entire species. Now, let's explore the architecture of the soul, specifically the breath of life. Because while clay and blood form our physical vessel, they just aren't enough on their own. It's the animating breath, the ruach, that elevates us from walking matter to conscious beings. And there's a profound truth hidden in the original Hebrew of Genesis. Humans and animals actually share the exact same nefesh shaya, which translates to the living soul or breathing creature. This foundational life force intimately ties us to the entire natural world. We share that exact baseline vitality. But, and here's where it gets amazing, humanity has the potential to actualize this massive, five-tiered soul architecture. We start down at the nefesh, our blood and physical action. Step 2 is ruach, our breath and emotion. Step 3 is neshama, our brain and intellect, where we gain true self-awareness. Higher still is kaya, our living transcendent essence. And finally, step 5, yekida, our singular, non-dual divine root. It is honestly staggering to realize that human consciousness can ascend all the way from basic atomic body awareness up to this ultimate divine spark. Which brings us to this mind-blowing quote from the source texts. The human soul is therefore not a creation of God, but literally a part of God himself. Think about the implications of that. The rest of the cosmos was simply spoken into existence. But humanity, we were animated by the Creator literally breathing his own essence into the dust. You're carrying that breath right now. So how does this breath work? That brings us to the linguistic code of life, the idea that we can literally program reality. You see, this divine breath is directly hooked into the power of language. Ancient mystics viewed letters and words as the functional building blocks of reality. Honestly, very much like how we view modern DNA today. Which brings us right back to the golem. That clay figure wasn't brought to life with some mechanical switch. It was activated linguistically. The word emet, meaning truth, was written upon its forehead. Truth is literally the code that animates the earth. But that code is fragile. If the golem grew out of control, they didn't destroy it with weapons. No way. They simply erased a single letter, the aleph. And just like that, it altered the code entirely, from emet to met, which means death. The instant that one letter changed, the golem deactivated and crumbled back into a pile of lifeless dust. And we even see this kind of coding in English. Look at this incredible linguistic mirror. The ongoing active verb live, when reversed, spells evil. Evil is simply life rejected, life hoarded, a system acting out of harmony with its design. And what about lived? That is literally the past tense of a closed heart. Language fundamentally encodes our reality. Finally, we arrive at searching for the name and the realization that we are distributed dust. Let's bring all of this together, the red clay, the universal typo blood, that 5-tiered breath of life, and the linguistic code. What does it all mean? It means the golem is not a fairy tale at all. It's encoded memory. We are the golem. We are the scattered, distributed dust of Adam walking the earth millennia later, alive but maybe a little incomplete. We are walking but not fully knowing. Reality is the spiritual essence revealed in the bet, the action, the consequence of our flesh and desire. And the sands of time? That's us, searching for the true name that actually animates our clay. Which leaves us with one final, really provocative question to ponder today. As a vessel formed from the earth and animated by a divine spark, what is the name written upon your forehead that makes you fully alive? Take some time to think about your own spiritual architecture and what truly gives life to your clay vessel. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.